With the EMPs detonating, the battle on Blair has suddenly turned south. And worse off, the Deliverance mechs are prepared to burn the battlefield to ash. With no AI to talk to, Isadora works silently as she usually does. Without missing a beat, she removes some of her mech's paneling. Thanks to Hyrule, she knew that the EMP effects discriminated between Deliverance mechs and all others, but that information was not a perfect defense. Because the Martyrs let their mechs disintegrate upon defeat, knowing what distinguished one of theirs wasn't an easy task. Isadora had been working on a counter since seeing the EMP in action, but Moon River was barely functioning even with her workaround. Just enough, though. Moon River struggles to push one leg forward, then the other. The speed is excruciating. There is no time to wait, and Moon River's faster than this. It's the second fastest in Noverture, after all. Moon River's reactor is already on the brink of overheating, but Isadora pushes it even further. She activates her infrequently used Oasis wall and boosts forward. Moon River can barely lift off the ground even with its boosters, but it's fast enough. Isadora cuts a line across the battlefield, and although it is small, a barrier rises in her path. The Common Front troops soldier through their panic and brace themselves as best they can against the wall. But eventually, Moon River can no longer continue forward and slams into the ground, and although the barrier protected anyone behind it, the Moon River is to its side. For a moment, Isadora reaches for her console and types, "Hyrule, believe in me." It hesitates to send it. "Nobody will reach it in time," Isadora mutters. Deliverance mech after Deliverance mech begins exploding, engulfing anything unprotected in flames. Moon River's reactor superheats the immediate area, but it's lost among the burning of the land and air. A hole is blown open in the mech, creating an opening in the cockpit, but Moon River's Singularity Motivator activates at the first sign of damage, throwing it out of the way of the direct explosion. Isadora reacts quickly and activates the Fade Cloak while careening away. She cannot stop the mech's crash course, but it isn't in danger of being blown to smithereens. Miles away, Moon River returns to real space, still rolling along with the massive momentum gained from just a brush with the explosions. And though Isadora is safe from that, her reactor is suddenly a pressing and very deadly issue. Rolling like this, Isadora would be crushed if she tried to eject. But staying here would mean melting in the next few seconds. Now free from the EMP, Isadora maneuvers her mech with a little more ease. She fires off her spare fuel rods as they turn close to the ground, melting the armor around the reactor. Taking control of one of Moon River's arms, she tries to reach for the reactor, but cannot with the current rotation. So instead, she breaks that arm and thrusts it diagonally forward, bashing it straight into the reactor at just the right angle to dislodge it, and the mech rolls over the arm, crushing it underneath. With the reactor gone, there is no way to regain any lost momentum, but Moon River manages to keep enough to escape the ensuing reactor explosion, which only bursts out far enough to catch the back of the mech. Still, it's enough to force Isadora to hang on to her control panel to avoid falling to her death. Her right hand is twisted a bit as it's slammed about, but luckily for Isadora, that is her biggest injury. At this point, though, it's not long before the remains of Moon River slow down and stop completely. Isadora crawls out and leans against them, not standing for fear of passing out on her feet. "Fuck," Isadora mutters. She looks skyward and sees the Aetolith in the distant sky, lifting off in minutes to her, but only seconds to its crew. Fuck. God damn it! Isadora slams her fist to the ground, struggling and failing to keep herself from crying. It's understandable that everyone would need to retreat after that battle, but to watch it happen from here is painful. The first breeze of a sandstorm passes by her, which she notices even in this condition. She returns to the corpse of Moon River and huddles inside to protect herself as nature begins to bury the blood and steel that have been spilled across Blair. Day turns to night during the rush of sand. Isadora salvages as much of her rations as she can manage. Much was lost when Moon River went down, but through sheer volume there is still enough that Isadora wouldn't starve anytime soon. With more time to burn and no desire to sleep, Isadora tries fixing her right hand, but with minimal medical knowledge there's not much she can do other than brace it. But looking at her hand, she suddenly has an idea. She takes out one of her energy pistols and its solar-powered holster, then begins tinkering with her arm and the hard suit around it. She works through the night, and when morning comes, the pistol and its holster are gone. Isadora taps away at her wrist computer, and a pink energy sword extends outwards from the device created from her repurposed items. A small smile flits across Isadora's face before she deactivates the blade. She turns her attention outside the mech. The sandstorm still raged on and showed no sign of stopping. For now, at least, Isadora decides to sleep. It is the second day after Isadora had gone missing. With little knowledge of Blair's layout, and having been disoriented during her crash, Isadora has no idea where she is. The good news is she hasn't run into any deliverance soldiers. The bad news is nobody from the Common Front had found her to take her somewhere safe. At the very least, she had found enough cloth during her walk to use as protection in case of any more sandstorms. Or at least that's the practical use. Isadora takes substantial comfort in sporting the old brown cloth cape look she had seen crop up on a few old characters who found themselves in deserts. There was some silver lining to being alone. It was that thought that brought back the crushing loneliness. 4 days have passed since Isadora was left behind. It's been some time since she's bothered calculating for time dilation, mostly for the anxiety of having to think of it at all. But now she's left wondering how long it would take for someone to find her. Would everyone turn around and come right back for her? Maybe they couldn't. But if that were the case, then just how long would it be until she saw a familiar face again? Surely it would be soon enough that she'd not forget them. 5 days after Isadora's disappearance, and she comes across deliverance soldiers. Not martyrs, of course, as they are still living, but none too friendly either, and not in the mood to give directions. One of them, who has taken point, points his gun at Isadora and shouts, "Who the fuck are you?" Before Isadora can reach for her gun, the soldier is shot dead by something else. Not by Common Front. Would have been a nice change of pace to be so lucky. It is instead one of the mysterious Kuga, which wastes no time gunning the other deliverance soldiers across the desert sands. But when it turns to Isadora, she's already dashed out of its immediate view, and when it tracks her, she's already made it to the cockpit. She reaches forward but is smacked away by the Kuga, which tries to retaliate with its knife. Isadora dodges deftly and tries again, only to find herself still unable to close the gap. The Kuga traces a line in the sand as it tries to hit her with an underhand slash, but the windup gives Isadora enough time to finally grab the Kuga's cockpit and stab it with her energy saber. The Kuga thrashes about, unable to shake her or gash her with a knife. Isadora attempts to drag the saber through the cockpit, but can't reach it in time to avoid both hands coming together to grab her and throw her to the ground. The Kuga reaches for its assault rifle and fires, blowing a hole through most of Isadora's armor. Isadora staggers forward and tries to grab the cockpit again, but her armor now weighs too heavily on her to allow free movement. The Kuga fires and Isadora forces herself to lunge forward just past the bullets. But with the pilot now on the ground, the Kuga rears its knife and lunges. This time, instead of trying to dodge, Isadora grabs the Kuga's arm and maneuvers her body around the knife. Before bounding further up, she looks to the cockpit, which is now secreting a liquid to seal up the damage inflicted by her sword. So these things heal, Isadora groans through her injury. Fine. More than one way to tear this thing apart. Isadora trails off and jabs her blade straight down, retracts it, then moves up again before plunging the e-saber in again. The Kuga manages to heal these tiny wounds with ease, but still cannot thrash Isadora off itself. Isadora perforates her way around the Kuga and leaps off after crossing from one shoulder to the other. The Kuga steps forward, but its attention is drawn down when it realizes the sand below it is steaming. Without a human pilot, it had no way of realizing that far too many wires had been breached to work properly. Isadora limps forward as the Kuga explodes, turning the sand around it into glass. Isadora turns to confirm the danger is past and slumps to the ground. She rips her patch from its holster and begins bandaging her torso. Isadora can't remember how to calculate time dilation, but she's certain that her struggle down here was the length of Bryn downing a shot somewhere up there. 2 weeks have passed. For everyone on the Adelith? Who knows? Maybe everyone's asleep. As if. Quinn wouldn't be able to sleep after what happened to Kovannin. Bryn and Sylvia would be inconsolable as well. Lyra, bastion of normalcy she is, might have the best chance to get some rest, if only through sheer stubbornness. And the only reason Isadora could sleep was through sheer physical exhaustion. Who knows how well rested she'd be if she were safe somewhere else. Isadora, A lone figure barely visible in a sweeping sandstorm makes her way up a dune, holding her cloak tight. The wind, mercifully enough, has mostly been blowing into her back, and behind her the first signs of life she had seen since she got here. A scrapyard, though difficult to see in the storm, gave her certainty that someone was living around here. Even if the only people around were bandits, it was still better than nothing. Isadora's legs stagger uphill after her day of walking, but she remains upright and determined through it. And, as though life itself is apologizing to her, the sandstorm begins to dissipate. Isadora relaxes her grip on the cloak, letting it drop to her neck. Her hair, which was already long, has now grown to cover more of her forehead, and after a quick shake of the head, it now rests messily both over and behind her shoulders. Her armor has retained most of the damage she's taken, but there are 2 cuts on her right cheek, prominent, though not close enough to her eye to create any worrying damage. Isadora reaches the top of the dune, only to find her luck had only gone so far. It seemed there was a settlement of techno-barbarians, or whatever they called themselves, right here. One that Deliverance did not take a liking to. Bodies of soldiers and brigand lined the ground of the encampment, riddled with bullets. Then, there's the third party. More of the unknown mechs acting like an efficient cleanup crew. Isadora hadn't heard gunfire, so they must have been patrolling the area for some time now. To what end is anyone's guess, but there are more of them here than what she had fought before. Sensing a new presence, they turn to her. Isadora looks just past them, and can finally see what has to be a town. As she suspected, the bandits had built their encampment close enough to see their mark. But it would be hard to find working vehicles in this mess, and the Cougas had already begun drawing closer to their new target. Isadora closes her eyes before throwing off her cloak and staring down the platoon. She activates her e-saber and charges forward, keeping the town in her sights. Anytime a Cougar aims, Isadora runs in close to disrupt its shot, then dodges out of the way of its knife. She changes the strategy from mech to mech until she spots a buggy that doesn't look too much more beat up than the average technical. Leaping in, Isadora immediately gets to work looking for a terminal within the vehicle, then hacks it. It's so simple to do that the Cougas have barely taken a single step in the duration. Isadora starts the buggy and launches forward, not even taking the time to fasten her seatbelts, which, had she taken a moment to look, would not have been possible, given the lack of seatbelts. This gambit gives Isadora a head start, but the lack of human pilots in the Cougas means they don't need a moment to process what happened. One merely takes aim and fires the back of the vehicle clean off, rendering it useless seconds after it had started. But Isadora, prepared for such a situation, uses the momentum of the now careening car and leaps forward as far as possible before the buggy loses its balance and crashes.
Light years away, the Arath Lance, now the Arath Horde, which had only semi-recently overran and seized a Deliverance warship to use as their main base while heading for the Death Scythe to meet up with the Hex Girls, receives the grim message that Rasha Cruess, the young woman with the honorific name Kovannin, had fallen in battle on Blair via the Matchmaker. S was, at the time, struggling to hack the CompCon that automated most of the ship's flight and assisted its pilot and alter devices in place that relayed the position of the ship back to Deliverance to make them read as if the ship were still where they found it, even as they hijacked it and took it for themselves. Joanne had been keeping her company. Ash had been taking over the guns. Vario had been assisting the Arathing-Ashayan martyrs they had mustered under their banner in detoxing from the drugs Deliverance was pumping them with, and Hyrule had been piloting throughout the 3 days they'd been traveling thus far, both because she was their leader and because she was the only member of their lance who had the experience and temperament to endure the lengthy stints of wakefulness that were required to keep the ship from being pulled off course by gravity or slamming into space debris without a CompCon or NHP to automate that. But again, their matchmakers all ping with the urgent update, and all their activity stops to watch the live footage of Kovannin's death captured by Quinn's stream. There was also a text message. Additionally, Isadora is MIA. Hyrule closes her eyes and briefly grits her teeth at the heartbreaking news. S sucks in a breath. Her hands close into fists, and Joanne hisses inwards as the all-too-familiar feeling of great loss hits him. He rests a hand on S's back and forwards the message to Ash and Ferio. Hyrule pulls herself together quickly, and was briefly sickened with herself at the haste in which she'd been able to just stow away all the feelings packaged with that tragic loss, along with all the other deeply scarring loss she'd weathered over her life and stored away for processing later. She sighed internally as the numbness washed over her, and she dashed away her fears that she might even count as human anymore. She was, she assured herself, still human. She would find time one day to grieve and mourn them all. Rasha was special, but everyone they had ever lost was special, just as everyone Rasha had helped them ensure made it out of that war was special. Ferio rushed over as Hyrule crouched down by S, who had composed herself just as quickly and had begun resuming her task with more urgency and anger behind it. Cousin, we're about to need the CompCon back up and on our side immediately. S frowned slightly, going after her. The Yuta and Isadora? Yeah, the latter first while you pursue the former. Understood. I will crack this momentarily. Go prepare the hot rod. Thank you. Joanne then spoke up. You should rest. Hyrule shook her head. I can rest while I'm dilating. I'm used to it, cousin. Joanne rubbed at his flame-scarred arm. He had not grown as dead to death as the rest of their lance. See you in 30 years, then? Hyrule chuckled and grasped him and pressed her forehead fiercely against his. It is not going to be that kind of jump. No. Joanne embraced her, and Hyrule hugged him back, soothed him momentarily, before patting him, releasing him, and standing. Ash and Ferio watched them, and Ferio frowned. What will you have us do? Hyrule sighed. Will you stay with our lance and keep them stable and detoxing? Ash, you will need to take a blink gate to the Flavor Town and deliver some news personally. The pair nodded. Hyrule then rushed to the hot rod, her custom Sunzi, and powered it up. She quickly activated the secret tracking device she had implanted in the dog tags she had given Isadora and frowned. It was no longer functioning. But she just rolled with the setback, much like she had all the others, and just tracked her to her last known location before the device broke. She'd just follow her trail from there. She quickly mathed out, with some help from the Hot Rod's computer, the distance and the time it would take to get from here to there, and then she grimaced as that readout came back. She was going to have to do something she hadn't done in a long, long time. As she belted up, S informed her that the CompCon was working. Hyrule praised her and thanked her, and left Joanne and her in co-command during her absence, with the directive to just stay on task, get this ship and their forces to the death site to meet up with the Hex Girls and the Wooloo Coalition. Then she and Ash jetted off. Ash threw a safe, stable blink gate set up by Deliverance to drop her off near Vineyard in the Flavor Town. But Hyrule went to meet up with the great-great-great-grandnephew of one of her old smuggling buddies. Then, with the hot rod stuffed with what she calculated would be enough food for two, by her best estimation for the length of journey that she was expecting to undertake, and swimming in medical supplies just to be safe, she braced herself and flung herself through the unstable, MacGyvered pirate blink gate that had been cobbled together from stolen black market tech, hoping to arrive unscrambled near Blair. Farewell, you absolute madwoman, said the great-grandnephew, as she disappeared and arrived on the other side, not even nauseous, and barely disoriented. With no hesitation, Hyrule tore off towards Isadora's last known location at faster-than-light speeds. She could feel the press of dilated time tick across her, but endured it as well as she always had, as she arrived at the waypoint with a snap, only 6 hours behind Isadora. But it would take her several more hours to find the wreckage of the Moon River. Once she found it, she quickly salvaged all she could, just shoving it into the cockpit and sealing it before hitching the Moon River to the hot rod as she checked the matchmaker printed out and installed in Isadora's mech for any messages. That's when she got the message delivered to her from Coriander, and then she took the time to acquaint herself with Fair. Believe in her, eh? Well, I do, Coriander. I truly do. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna leave her without backup. She deconstructs Isadora's matchmaker and readies her weapons. In fact, the feelings I have for her oblige me to make my way to her side and stay at it any time I am not required to be, nor desired by either of us to be away from it. With that said, she set off on her task, listening to Coriander prattling on and bantering back. They were good companionship. As she followed Isadora's footsteps in the sand until the sandstorm devoured them. Sighing, she scanned the horizon with urgency, perking up as she spots the perceptible markers left behind to prevent one from wandering in circles in the desert. Ha ha! So clever. Hyrule audibly voiced her approval. She was impressed. She checked the time. She was almost a day behind Isadora now. With a grim expression on her face, Hyrule flipped open the safety that protected her overcharge from being accidentally activated as she spoke with a wry, fond voice. How am I ever going to catch up? The sonic boom of her ripping off, first faster than the speed of sound, then faster than light, echoed across the wastes as she actively searched out and hacked into any communication signals that she could find between her and wherever the markers were leading her. She passed one blasted out battle site and followed the fresh trail from that to the next. And it is via this that she arrives on the scene just in the nick of time. When she snaps into regular time, with no nausea and no disorientation, it takes only a moment to see the back of the buggy being blown off the hijacked vehicle and catch the glimpse of the familiar pink and blue of Isadora's body armor as she goes careening into the sand. Hyrule again does not hesitate. She fires her souped-up Andromeda pattern heavy laser rifle right into the engine of the enemy mech, melting it right out and sending the Kuga lurching to an inelegant halt as she pilots her own mech, still glowing hot from heat accumulated from consecutive overboosting and from firing that rifle between the assailants and Isadora. She quickly angles the hot rod so as to not target Isadora and releases her explosive vents, clearing all her heat in a burst one explosion and searing the hostile forces with a blistering wave before flinging the nearest attackers away.
So Isadora will see this, look back but keep running, but like give a wave to Hyrule.
It's very clearly, the last time Isadora saw Hyrule's mech, it was painted in the Transflag colors. This now her mech is painted that dark navy blue that the Ashai paint themselves when they are on the warpath, when they are Roth, but it does have a red stripe up it. So she might not even recognize it's Hyrule. But it is the same Sunzi. It is Hyrule's same Sunzi, just repainted. Yeah.
It is Hyrule's general mech style and attitude in a fight.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's somebody defending her, so even if she was wrong, hey, it's somebody trying to help.
Yeah. Seeing Isadora's wave out of the corner of her eye, Hyrule quickly analyzes the situation and determines that 10 versus 2 is not the best odds, especially when one of them isn't even in a mech. After all, if assailants were brazen enough to shoot Hyrule when she was out of her mech when Isadora rushed to save her ass on Vineyard, it's safe to assume the hostels here would be no different. So, Hyrule hastily boosts off to Isadora's unmixed side and activates the Hot Rod's Blink Space Tunneler to open a blink tear right in front of Isadora before teleporting her lover into the tear using the Sunzy's Art of War core system. Hyrule coolly slips forward 2 movement, overcharges, and boosts off at max speed, leaving the Kugas in her dust but delivering Isadora right into the grasp of her mech at the end of her movement. Then, hurriedly opens the cockpit of the Hot Rod and gently deposits Isadora into it before closing the cockpit and angling the Hot Rod for one of the mines where the first altercations between the miners and the corporation that owned the mining operations first began, based on local news reports and the dossier for the mission that the Hex girls were given and that were shared with her by Quinn, and begins taking them both there at high speeds. She gets there, she will I think the first thing she will do is just probably actually steal a ship from these miners. Sorry, folks. I don't know how much time passes from here to there. But once she commits to that course of action, she's just going to focus on Isadora, putting her AI to the task of getting them there, getting up and passing Isadora a canteen of water while urging her to drink it very, very slowly, because otherwise she might puke it all up and die, and please don't.
Yeah, pretty much from the time she gets into the cockpit, she looks extremely tense. She takes the water slowly, eventually finishes it though. She's drinking through the whole thing, and then just kind of
Pace yourself.
collapses.
Yeah, get her settled into the chair while the AI handles things, grumbling to herself. She's pretty roughed up, so Hyrule will go through and get med kits and stuff while the AI is taking them there at extremely high speeds and start patching Isadora up. Not really saying much of anything right now, just trying to stabilize her. Well, she will say, "I can't believe you," like mumbling that over and over and over again.
Thanks for the bail. I think I'm on my 5th wind by now.
Just rest. It wasn't a bail. You totally had them, she says, lying.
Oh yeah,
it was
totally.
absolutely kill stole you.
Yep, just needed 5 more minutes and I would have had him.
Yep.
And she just sort of passes out at this point.
Good. Yeah. When Isadora wakes up, they probably she will be in whatever small spacefaring craft Hyrule could grab. Anything that can actually get them into deep space. Like, doesn't want a pleasure craft that can only get into low orbit. Needs something that can get to the Aetolith. They probably don't have like anything fast here, unless like I doubt they are so fortunate that like the foremen are here in like one of their luxury crafts. I doubt they're that lucky. So she'll have to grab the quickest, fastest thing she can get in the shortest amount of time and just bail. Whoops, some crimes have been done. It's okay. She'll leave like a note or something. No, she won't even go that far. She'll send them. She'll let them send her an invoice. Yeah, she'll let Bryn know that he might get an invoice later. I'm sure Bryn will be happy to hear that. So when Isadora finally regains consciousness, she will be in the bunk of the small craft. Like just, with a fan on her because wows. With water and a bit of food waiting. Not too much, because again, if you eat too much too fast from being out in the desert for God knows how long, it will fuck you up. So, yeah. And Hyrule is piloting the ship. It's small enough that Isadora can probably see from the bunk to where the pilot seat is, where Hyrule is piloting the ship. But yeah, she got her out of there, and yeah, she's trying to figure out where the Aetolith is, but now that they're out of there, she can basically get in her mech and go through the matchmaker and contact, basically anybody and go to the where the Adolith is. Meet up with the Adolith. But it
Mm,
will take probably an entire mission before they get where they are. And I guess that's probably what she'll learn. So she'll have to run this by Isadora, is basically that they will be there. Like, do you want to go to, like, where do you want to go from here? Hyrule's says your options are to go back to the flavor town and you'll miss a couple missions, or we just meet your crew at wherever this is, wherever they're going. They're not heading to, they're leaving the flavor town right now.
First off, what's been going on? What did the rest of the group tell you?
She frowns a little bit and she pulls up a chair and sits down and says, right now, the thing foremost in my mind has been you, and I haven't quite processed everything else that has happened. And then she looks up and frowns more, and she clenches the hand that is actually still like a flesh and blood hand into a fist and says, "But I know that they killed her."
I see. I figured that's what I saw at the end, but it's kind of a blur, so part of me was hoping I was wrong. Kinda knew I wasn't, though.
I I have. She sits there for a moment trying to figure out how to. You are understanding me, right? How's the AI in that suit of yours? Tapping it?
It's about as good as it can be. A lot of the actual defensive capabilities of this thing are, well, trashed after a single shot from one of those things, but I make sure my computer is up and running.
Well, I did see the other guy in terms of how Isadora left the other guy while she got shot. uh, Hyrule is doing that self defensive, let's joke around and not talk about our feelings thing. It's very healthy.
Speaking of feelings, Isadora's going to sort of uh, look at her hand and then just sort of you see just an idea come to her head. Just out of curiosity, I don't look too different, right? I look fine.
Gosh, does she look too different?
Her hair's longer, but that's just about it.
Longer hair. It suits you, I guess. If that's how you want it to be. I'm not picky.
Good, thank goodness. I,
Should you be looking
it's,
different? Uh oh,
I mean, I,
Isadora's arm has probably been actually correctly set and bandaged and done what first aid has been done, right, to make sure that she will actually recover.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is also a condition that she is in.
Sorry, I think, kind of lost track of the time, but it's been a couple weeks since the battle for me. Probably hasn't been anywhere near as long for all of you. It's been a while since I've had to think about time dilation at all. I'm usually with the people I actually care about, not stranded on a planet while everyone else is in space.
Well, I have what I hope is good news. A good news sandwich for you. Good news. I can't speak about what's going on your end of this nice thing we got going on, but I'm with someone I care about right now. Bad news. Time dilated for you and our Covannins, that's the Hex Girls and the Arath Lance, are weeks behind you. Good news, that bottom end of the good news sandwich, is that you is actually in us because I caught up and I'm dilated right here alongside you. And as Hyrule says that, she's looking at Isadora very fondly, and she gestures over at her Sunzi, which is resting intact next to the salvage remains of the Moon River. The hot rod may not be a work of art, but it is state of the art.
Well, it managed to come in time, so honestly, in a situation like that, I'm glad it held up as well as it did.
Well, I made it that way. She's one of a kind, like you. But hey, Mac, the Moon River, it held up pretty well too. I've been piecing it back together, but it's not. I'm not as familiar with it as you are. Once you're in better condition, we can work on it while we're catching up.
Honestly, I didn't think that thing would run.
It
I
ran.
figured
I saw the footsteps. It totally ran. And when there was one set of footsteps, she says, holding her finger up.
it was more of a roll in that case, but I figured I'd just print out a new one, but, honestly, putting it back together will be fun, I think.
It'll be fun, you say? Well, I'm glad you feel that way because, about just printing out a new mech? We can't. This ship that I stole for us doesn't have a full printer. We can print out some weapons, we can print out some parts, not big enough. We're gonna have to do it our way, the Ashai way. Unless you wanna go running out into the battle with your friends unmech'd, which more power to you if you do.
I'm a little tired of that by this point.
Good. Well then, when you're in a better condition to do it, I will. It's actually a ritual among our people to do stuff like this. It's a deeply symbolic thing by our customs. In fact, we're actually saying some extremely cozy shit implicitly right now. But let's not get too caught up in how us Ashai will read into anything and just make a project out of it, alright?
Sounds fun. Speaking of projects, here's one I'm rather proud of, and Isadora puts her arm up, taps the screen, and then her e-saber comes out.
Hyrule thinks that is cool as hell. Wowzers. Cool. She's very impressed. That's rad as hell. It's polite applause. Dang. You just made that out in the middle of nowhere?
Yep, from one of these, and she just taps her solar-powered gun.
Nice. Like, you sure live up to our name?
I try.
Hyrule gazes at her admiringly, and then suddenly, spontaneously speaks up. Hey, do you want to hold hands for a minute?
Oh, sure.
Hot. It says she'll take Isadora's hand and like look awkward. Say, are we in the implied consent for touching place?
I'd just prefer a warning beforehand, but otherwise, yes.
She laughs and says, I'll do my best. So the hand she put in Isadora's hand, that she's holding Isadora's hand with right now, is the cybernetic hand. It feels pretty fleshy, very almost near real, but you can tell it's definitely a prosthetic. It's not an actual real hand. But as Isadora's holding it, Hyrule just snaps the arm off of her and just pushes it into Isadora's arms. Have a hand, like grinning, making a pun.
Fond of this party trick, are you?
Yes. You. And she leans back. Again.
Can you control it when you've removed it?
Yes. She does. She wiggles the fingers while they're in your embrace, and it's completely disconnected from her. Amazing technology, huh?
Yes, quite.
Yeah. The means to replicate it died with Badru. But you seem to have a knack for these things, she says, gesturing from the energy blade to her arm. So maybe the genius behind making prosthetics of this quality could come back. You could maybe reverse engineer it. Recover the lost artistry of making it and things like it.
It certainly seems possible. I didn't exactly learn much medical work back in Union, but they, of course, also have extremely good prosthetic technology. I've actually experienced it quite a bit myself.
Oh?
She just points to... She just, does a wave over most of her body, under her head. So, I had brittle bones growing up, so technology-wise, I got a bit of cybernetic implants into my bones and a few doses of things to strengthen the bits of it left over. Similar technology, not exactly the same as prosthetics, but similar idea. They've
Fascinating.
advanced quite a bit. You can do a lot with your body back in cradle.
Back in. Right, right. You told me you're from Cradle. I still can't believe you're literally from Cradle. That's like a place of myth amongst our people. I'm almost as old as you, but even I don't know much about Cradle.
It's quite the place.
The hand that Isadora is holding, like the whole arm, just relaxes because Hyrule is trying to behave herself. But for a moment, it was toying with her hair before Hyrule caught herself doing that and made herself stop behaving herself. Oh, wow. Shh. You sure have done a lot in your time here.
Isadora's just under her breath. Oh shit. I hope somebody turned Coriander's backup on when they got back.
Faye sent me a message.
Oh yeah. At this point, yeah, uh, Coriander's message comes in, and Isadora's just like, "What?"
Yeah, someone did power Fair back up, and Fair a cat boy now, Cat Faye? Cafe. You appear to have created a whole ass person, beautiful. And Faye and I had ample time to catch up while I was breaking the laws of the galaxy to catch up with you.
Huh. So they're doing quite well then.
Hyrule
I,
nods, and Faye and I talked a little bit before I dilated out of time, and now we are not going to be able to catch up with anybody until they catch up with us. We're way ahead of them. We have left them in our dust.
hmm. It wasn't long ago Faye wasn't interested in having a body at all.
I,
Hmm.
having a body is kind of nice. I enjoy it. I don't see why it's worth experimenting. You start to realize how important it is to you when when you start missing parts of it.
So Fair's doing well then.
As well as they can be, considering everything.
At this point, now that she's heard about Coriander, Isadora takes a moment. It's like, where are the Hex Girls heading?
Well, where they're heading has something of a complicated answer. Where they're heading is to the Emerald Gate.
Well, I'm in no condition to fight, but we're going there.
So be it. However, there's more, because there's also where they are, which is several weeks behind us, time wise. And in concert with both those things, there's also how they're doing. And since I had ample time to speak with Coriander, Faye updated me on that, and she sucks in a breath, steels herself, and just rattles it off. Quinn's missing. Hyrule Lake makes vague gestures of like a magic trick, as if she has made something disappear. Can't get anything to her. I've put some messages into the matchmaker and sent them to her, and they just they bounce off into nothingness. They can't reach her. It's like she's unplugged.
I see. That only makes sense after what happened in the last fight, but still.
Bryn's doing nothing but drinking. Um Lyra and Sylvia doing all just going overboard on souping up mechs. Yeah, coping the best ways they can.
Can't say I'm surprised, but
She rubs at her face with her actual flesh and blood hand, and because you still have her arm, and says, I sent Ash, you might remember her from the when we first met, to go speak with them personally. It's more custom stuff amongst our people. When giving and receiving news, when we can, we try to send flesh and blood people. So, when you want to punch somebody, you can actually punch somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I figure Ash could take a punch or two, even from Sylvia.
I doubt that's really what they would have done in that situation, though.
Likewise. Though we won't know for sure exactly how it went until they catch up with us. When she finishes that statement, Hyrule glances down into her lap and audibly gulps. When she speaks again, her voice is just so numb and weary. Speaking of stuff catching up with us, She closes her eyes as her hands ball into tight fists. I've been dancing around it a lot. I haven't actually had a lot of time to process my feelings. I've been too worried about you. You don't know a lot about our history. I don't know how much of the stuff you read that we put in there. We didn't expect it of you. It's not like it's mandatory to know it.
I read what I could.
Hyrule smiles brokenly, looks over to Isadora with a forlorn expression on her face. She's gone. Like so many others. We saw each other through so much together, she and I. There was a time when things like this just felt so unreal. But now they're all too familiar. Still, that she died, but I remain alive, it just... Hyrule gazes up at the ceiling of their small shared vessel, sucks in a breath, quickly composes herself, and then resumes speaking in a jovial tone. Her name, honorific names like mine and hers, they're rare amongst our people, rarer now that there's so few of us. But she is the first to be given that name as an honorific name. Before her, there was just our First Matriarch, Kovannin, a name that was in our history. It's one of our more important terms. A name can become a term. A term can then become a name. And then you can change the meaning of the name of the term. It's what I'm trying to do with Hyrule. Our culture is weird. I'm not going to demand or require you to understand it. But it made sense to us, and we did it this way. And I don't question it. I've been around for too long. I like it.
Well, I think it's admirable. It's acknowledging that language changes over time.
Hyrule grunts in agreement and continues speaking. Our people, the Ashai people, our customs and traditions weren't designed to be consolidated down into this small of a number. It's rising complications where people who are more traditional, like me, unfortunately, are struggling to adapt to the situation that we've been meted out. And to change our customs and traditions to be less... Well, normally they made sense. Now they don't. They're too oppressive now for such a small number of people. Where before it was fun to play around, now it's a matter of life and death. Now we take it too seriously, where before a lot of these fucking hurdles were just jokes we played on each other to show that we cared. With all the betrayal, they've become methods of survival.
Whether it was intended or not, that's part of Deliverance's plan too. They didn't have to kill all of you to try to cull you entirely.
You didn't see what Svava sent us, did you? So, may I have my arm back?
Do you want to go back? And Isadora opens her hand and lets it, I guess, crawl back.
Yeah,
Has
she'll
she done
curl it
that
back
before?
over. Yeah, she'll curl it back over Isadora, even though she could reach over and take it and slap it back on. She'll worm it across Isadora like with a smirk, and then pick it up and attach it. Feels it's fun.
Yeah,
uh,
so you've done that one before.
maybe. No, I'm a 100% virgin. You were my first.
I was just talking about hand tricks, for having your hand walk across, but okay. Sure, take it like that then. Your word.
She oh god, what were we doing now that Isadora has distracted her by being horny back at her? Hyrule scrambled. Hyrule blushes and laughs a lot and says, "How else am I supposed to take it? I'm still getting used to you being like this."
Apparently, I've still retained what I learned in college.
She smiles and says, "It suits you." So she pulls up her PDA now that oh right, the video, and she'll show it all the information that Svava sent them about what was discovered on Dinhark in terms of Deliverance. Absolutely planned to kill off all the Ashai. They sold weapons to the people who wanted to kill the Ashai in the first place. And then it then instrumented a coup amongst those people to take control over their entire groups, and then pumped even more weapons into them, and then sent them and then helped them basically go after the Ashai to kill all the Ashai so they could get their hands on the Ebrium on the Ashai's land. So all of it was Deliverance. Deliverance wanted them all dead.
Some Harrison Armory ass bullshit.
And what happened instead is the girl that they gave the honorific name Kovannin took up a spear and started doing just absolute insane prodigy scale fucking gorilla shit on these people, killing and crippling them by the hundreds and thousands, and slowly drawing people under her. Mustering remnants of the Ashai were left, to the point where even people who were on Deliverance's side started to, what was secretly Deliverance's side, started to break away and join under the Ashai's side, Kovannin's side, because the viciousness of Kovannin's, like the utter ruthlessness of this at the time 8-year-old girl was so, they didn't even want to go against it.
Hyrule talks about this with this mixture of energy and anguish, extolling at length about how glorious and scarring it was to get caught up in something like this.
Because she was one of the earliest people to join, to join up with Kovannin and start fighting alongside her. It's why she became Kovannin's left arm. One of her main generals, quote unquote generals, though Ashai don't work like that. Regardless, the message is that what happened is Kovannin actually started to turn the tide of the war. And Deliverance was not going to stay and just killing off all the Ashai. So they had to change their plans. So they showed up. They weren't late. Their story was they didn't get there in time. They were there all along. The story they sold us of barely getting there in the nick of time, sweeping in and helping us, close the deal, was a lie. But then they were left with 74 people, left of billions, sweetheart. And they couldn't just kill us all off. Not with all those eyes on them. They sold us a lie, bound us into their servitude.
And then planned to choke out your culture and the rest of it.
What little was left. We, as I told you, mostly had oral traditions. We didn't really write a lot down or archive a lot of it, and that's a hard lesson to learn. Something we should have done. We would have lost a lot less.
How exactly are people supposed to prepare for extinction? This is an in-character, long, angry silence, like she's staring out into the middle distance with a scowl on her face.
And Isadora pipes up with, Still, though, it does highlight a glaring weakness in Deliverance's methodology, or at the very least, how highly they think of themselves. True, it was to their advantage to use Kovannin as their poster child, however, not to be too grim, but keeping her around for so long was a mistake. She's powerful, but also her will is infectious. She's able to turn Deliverance against themselves to a certain extent.
Hyrule looks over at Isadora with a slightly surprised expression on her face and purses her lips before she speaks. So, you felt it, huh? Yeah. Me too. She wets her lips and gazes out the window near Isadora into the vast stretch of space surrounding them. Being around that girl she was magnetic. And I can see why Quinn was enraptured by her. We all were. She was like family to all of us. We all consider ourselves family, but this was different. For a while, the two of them just sit in quiet, companionable silence together, sharing space with one another. Eventually, Hyrule smiles sadly and speaks up again, slapping her hands on her thighs. Welp, we have our plan of action. Reconvene with our Kovannins at the Emerald Gate once they manage to catch up with us, and then all go forward together from there. But until then, you should focus on getting as much rest as you can. You have a lot of recovering to do. And you are going to recover. Ugh. You know, this is making me think back on just how much you and the rest of the Hex Girls had to browbeat me to get me to cooperate with my recovery after you came back to rescue my ass on Vineyard. I sure hope you're not as stubborn as I was. But, just to ensure you're not, I swear to you, once you're able to be up and about with relative comfort, we'll celebrate in a manner of your choosing. And if that preferred manner of celebrating includes drinking, I can even sweeten the deal. Because while I was salvaging Moon River, I found something. And she'll pull out the bottle of wine, but you don't get to have any until you recover.
Of course. I can't believe I almost forgot that one.
I can't believe it survived the crash. It looks like you've done a little bit of smuggling yourself.
Well, I mean, I need places to store snacks and mechs, and, well, it's not a very big mech.
This is
Gotta learn how to squirrel step away.
This is not a very big ship. She gestures around. The ship that she stole is a very small, like, fast, speedy craft. There's only one bed. There's the cargo hold where the remains of Moon River and her Sunzi hot rod are like clustered together because it's only big enough to really fit like two large size vehicles. So fortunately, like since they both have, like I think they're both small mechs. I believe the Sunzi is size 1. The Moon River is also size 1.
1/2.
Yeah, 1/2. So yeah, they can fit in there with just a bit of room to spare, like clustered down next to all the supplies, right, and parts, and the printer. And then there's just like a small workout room, a small like eatery and lounge. It's just like the ship is for basically a crew of 2 to 3. That's it. And it shows.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fine. Just don't squeeze too hard.
So, it's all right then. Because I could just, sleep in the pilot's chair or sleep in my mech or.
I mean, I've
not
done that
sleep.
before. Don't do that. Don't do any of those.
All right, I'll behave myself.
Yeah, my bones are mechanical. That's fine, but the everything else of me is a little touchy right now.
But you did.
do it before. All the way from cradle, in fact. I didn't even go that extreme, darling. I mean, I've jumped through a couple black market blink gates in my time, but that's about as as fucked up as I've gone with this shit. I've stayed awake for 10 years straight of time, dilated, not in real life. And that hit me like a hammer on the other side.
I mean, it's not terribly impressive. It's
That's out of
really more
character,
you
yeah.
just.
Sorry.
It's really more like you just chain a bunch of road trips together, and suddenly you are far, far away from where you started.
How'd you keep it together?
I mean, mostly thinking about how well, not actively thinking. I didn't want to think of there anymore, and I just thought about completing whatever task I had to do that would take me somewhere else, and other than that, just distracting myself with reading.
It gets lonely. Reading. Right, you talked to me about that. I looked through some of your tags in the matchmaker. She rubs at her chin. So you're into that kind of stuff, eh? I could totally print out some fake plastic vampire fangs. We could do this.
Yeah, I'm kind of back and forth on vampires, honestly. Like, sometimes I get a bit squeamish about the blood thing.
She looks down at you? Really? And all the
Sometimes is the
bandaged
operative
on
word.
other people's blood, not yours, apparently.
Yeah, well, it's not like I wanted this to happen.
She gently scoots you over so she can join you on the bed, leaning back. Elle, you made the best you could in the situation you were in. Let's just focus on getting you back together again. This wine that she gave you, Rasha, that's her common name, gave you. I don't even know if we can make it anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, it won't exactly fit the moment, but I guess we can take a sample of it and see what we can do with that.
Yeah, well, we can take a sample, but for now, get some rest. I will attempt to sleep too. That's how I coped, unfortunately. I didn't. uh, Most people, they try and sleep through it or keep themselves active or read like you did. I didn't. I just stared out into the void. I looked into that abyss, however long it lasted. And she shrugs. This is fine, dog.
There's an old phrase, the watch pot never boils, but it is technically untrue. You watch a pot full of water, eventually it will boil. You watch space and eventually it'll go by, but I can't imagine the view was the best you've ever seen.
It was a lot of nothing, but, pockets of light in that nothing. Stars
Stars were
or
a little boring from a distance, yeah.
stars or galaxies or yeah. Sometimes you could catch glimpses in the ultra speed. Mostly blurs, a little disorienting at time, going that fast. They seem to be sitting in stasis and yet moving all too quick.
You could probably, take your eyesight from one to the other.
In
Make
the,
a game out of it, I guess. I don't know.
I
Never tried.
read I read a bunch about travelogues about how people would go around and look at license tags. We don't have those anymore. Or billboards and make whole games out of it and sing dumb stories. Coriander sang me a bunch of dumb road songs and sea shanties while we were going across the dunes before I dilated away from Fair.
See, Shanies, huh?
She
Wonder why Faye went with that.
She'll cradle you in her arms and close her eyes and try to sleep. What it did is make it difficult to sleep, because now I see the endlessness in my dreams. And all the trauma, too. Got that now, too. It's fun. I haven't even processed her or anybody else I've lost over the 130-some years I've been alive. I'll find time one day.
Isadora has fallen asleep, but in her sleep she just hugs Hyrule tighter.
Yeah. And Hyrule will mumble, aloud, I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't made it as well. But Isadora doesn't get to hear that. So next, we'll just go over a couple days of them horsing around on the ship. Hyrule, like, helping her, like, get together and eat and clean herself up. I mean, she's a big girl. She can do it herself. But if she wants to play off not being able to do it, that's fun and cute. Get her walking and moving around again, and after a couple days, because they've got more than enough, like, they've dilated so much, it's going to be like a week or so that they're just kind of trapped here together. I will constantly remark that it's good company, right? That Isadora is good company. Quip and tell her stories. Get Isadora to tell her any stories. They can load up the matchmaker and play some video games. I was gonna have Hyrule show Isadora the work she's been making on recreating the frog game she described to Isadora. It works now.
Nice.
Code runs. Take a look at the code, though. Oh god, Isadora, this code is just an absolute atrocity. This is crimes level code. But it runs.
You have made a game entirely out of duct tape. Congratulations.
Yeah. She laughs. Yes. That the metaphor works. But yeah, once Isadora is back to, like, up and about and can actually move about again, it's probably time to just close this out with a nice, cute final scene, however long that takes. So, Hyrule basically pushes the tool, like, sets the toolbox out in front of her with a big clank now that she's moving around okay, right?
Yep.
And just gestures to it with a flourish. She's very happy. She's, like, Hyrule's happier than you've ever seen her. She's really enjoying just spending all this time, getting to spend all this time in her company, in Isadora's company. But yeah, once Isadora is back to, like, up and about and can actually move about again, Hyrule basically pushes the tool, like, sets the toolbox out in front of her with a big clank now that she's moving around okay, right?
Yep.
And just gestures to it with a flourish. She's very happy. She's, like, Hyrule's happier than you've ever seen her. She's really enjoying just spending all this time, getting to spend all this time in her company, in Isadora's company. She looks Isadora up and down and seems almost smitten. How you holding up? How you doing there? You look like you're moving around all right.
Yeah, well enough. I think everything's healed up as much as really useful anyway.
While moving about the cabin she's more than well enough acquainted with, Isadora probably notices her reflection in the mirror that Hyrule put up some time ago. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so Isadora glances at herself in the mirror and notices those 2 scratches still on her face, and asks Hyrule, "Hey, you wouldn't happen to have any paint, would you?"
And for a moment, Hyrule's lost in oogling Isadora and didn't quite hear her.
Hyrule?
Oh, huh? Oh, not bad on the eyes either. What?
You'll have to do a little better than that, or we won't be able to fight together.
Stop being so stupid sexy, and we can fight together. What was it you asked? Paint. Yeah. Yeah, it's special. It's fine. She'll go and get it, like, hurriedly.
fumble about and pull out the jar. A jar that's two paired jars, right? And she'll hold it out and explain. This is the paint that we use to paint ourselves with when we either are coming to talk for peace or are coming to talk for war. Well, talk. She makes air quotes, right, around talk. The blue one, the cerulean, this one, she pats, you're already familiar with. We used a little bit of the real stuff when we came to talk to you. But this is the one, this is probably the color you're going to want. She offers the midnight blue to her. This is the midnight blue, what you would call midnight blue. It's what we use when we're going to do that other kind of talking.
Isadora looks over both for a moment. Just takes 2 fingers, sticks one in each, paints over the scars with both of them.
Yeah, doesn't. What's under which eye?
It was her right eye, I believe.
Right eye, yeah. Harold smirks and says, yeah. Love and war, huh? Yeah. Yeah. I can. I might match it myself one day. I don't want to steal your look. She'll screw it back on. Yeah. The plants used to make it also, I think, may have been mostly blasted out. Kovannin, the girl, she she rolls her eyes, to collect some of the seeds of those plants just as shit started really going south. So I have some of the seeds, but I'm not a botanist.
Well, lucky you ran into me then.
Yes. Luck had everything to do with it. Our people don't believe in destiny or fate. This was a natural 20. She grins. You probably rolled like a 4. Gesturing to herself. Definitely a 4.
Isadora just pats her on the shoulder. Well, I'm not going to use your nerd terminology, but you are very cool and very hot. So I'm not going to acknowledge your self-deprecation. Got it?
Got it. You were also very cool and very hot. She opens up the toolbox and hands Isadora, a appropriate tool for the actual task that they are going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fixing up the mech. You perverts listening to this. I don't want to be tricking you into any kind of anything. I want to be honest with you. This, she gestures, I told you. Look, I'm trying to figure out what your face is and match it. I'm really glad we found each other and that you made it. And I did do what you asked. In the message. I believed in you. It wasn't easy. But about fixing up Moon River together and that ritual behind it. With that not wanting to trick you and wanting to be honest with you in mind. Culturally, doing stuff like that deepens the bond between us. Specifically, working on each other's mechs and our prosthetics, by the way, is an unspoken expression of that term Quinn has been expressing, the one that made us all act however you interpreted our behavior back there, on the planet, on the farm, when I shot you.
Mm-hmm.
She wets her lips. It's nostalgic. I'd almost forgotten it until you started expressing it on accident. It still counts when you do it on accident, though. We're awful like that. Anyway, you've unspoken it quite a bit, and I've unspoken it significantly, and fixing up Moon River together would be us ritualistically unspeaking it together to each other again. So if you just want to have at it, I'll be over here.
Real quick, would that be one of the would that be a term included in like what was given to
There's
Isadora?
visibly a term missing between the term Irrigan and then it just moves on. It's as if you can tell like there's definitely something missing. I think Isadora knows enough to know that like a term was omitted in this thing that Kovannin and Hyrule uploaded.
So
Uh,
yeah, Isadora just thinks for a sec, is like, "Eh, I guess I'm have no choice but to unspeak it, but and then she leaves a tool on the table and just motions at it.
oh, I was just gonna go get in the shower, run it really cold, but no, I'd be happy to be hot with you. She'll put her hand on the tool and say, and grin and say, and I will speak it to you. But if you're gonna do it this our way, you gotta go through the fucking hoops. So she'll start putting the Moon River together and printing things up and like trying to like she like mischievously tries to like overclock things that definitely should not be overclocked. Like, oh man, we could totally make this gun shoot way harder. Oh man, this sword is really cool. It could be sharper though. Do you want to do some crimes? But as she's doing that, like being just awful about trying to overclock and soup up the Moon River, she'll say that what do you call me again?
Mm, what do you mean?
In terms of my name, you just call me Hyrule, right?
Oh, yes.
That is my honorific name. You can keep calling me that. But you know my chosen name, Isadora Allo. I'm Isa Juror. You could just call me Isa. That's one of the requirements of the thing we're doing. The term. You gotta know our chosen name. Told you it, like, right out the gate, because I'm rude. Sneaky. And I knew yours from the dossier.
Well,
You
suppose if you would...
non-shy, just throwing your chosen names out there willy-nilly. she stops interrupting you. She's being very, like, tsundere now.
I have no name but my chosen name to give out. Well, I mean, technically I do, but I don't.
Yeah, you used the Nova name. Yeah.
The Hex Girls really don't use our tags that much. I've not used Nova in ages. Sometimes I even forget that that's what people see when they look me up.
I've looked up all your antics and exploits, like a creepy stalker with a crush, because I am, in fact, a creepy stalker with a crush.
You can't stalk me if I already know you're there, Isa.
I'm very good at stalking.
No, you're not.
She makes too much noise. She's too big. She clanks around too much. Oh, I'm not? How did I get the surprise on you? back there. Shut you right out of your neck.
That was our first meeting, of course, but I know you a little better right now. For example, it would have been a little easier to find me if these hadn't broken. And she holds up her dog tags.
Issa blushes and like laughs awkwardly. In hindsight, that's actually a little creepy, but, and I know this doesn't make it better, it actually goes both ways. You can track me too. In fact, I never expected I was gonna come to the point where I was actually going to be the one who needed to use it to find you. I assumed I was going to be the one who was going to need to be tracked down and talked to because of stuff. My point is, it's not okay, but it does if you check it. It goes both ways. You can track me too. I wanted to make it as easy as possible for you to find me. My side of that device is in my arm. And she pats the cybernetic arm. Not even in this one. Flesh and blood. I tagged myself like a stray cat. If you check it, like if you can actually reactivate it, it's true. You could have tracked her too.
I'll have to fix that up then when I get back.
So you know my chosen name. I know yours. Good. It's basically all it takes other than mutually feeling it, which you do. So the term. She drops down. It's Sirach. It has a very long definition. I'll fix it in your dictionary, but only we're weird about it until we figure out how to stop being weird about it. It means short, everything. She rubs at her face and with her flesh and blood hand. It means you're everything to me.
Isadora smiles.
And I'm everything to you if it's reciprocal, and if it's not, then it's a problem. That I'm a big enough girl to handle.
Isadora just goes in for a hug.
Hyrule will hug her back very, very tightly. Some of us spend our entire lives looking for it, because we don't believe there's one chosen person or people, many of us are poly, out there in the galaxy for you. But you find somebody that works well enough, because we believe in stubbornness. We'll bend the galaxy to our wishes. We will make that person our soulmate, since it's not insured. We'll guarantee it. That's Sirach.
So we're Sirach then,
Yes. It makes us married. And that means, well, how many aloes are there in the galaxy? She laughs.
She kind of feels Isadora slump a bit.
Issa supports her and makes one of those sympathetic sounds.
I guess it's just me and maybe Coriander. I
3.
don't know how Faye.
3 then. She laughs. 2 to 3. Yeah. Hello, Isadora Aloe. I am your wife, Issa Aloe.
Isadora's just going to kiss her.
Big smooch. Pick her up and spin her around. Set her back down and get back to work on the mech. Cool. Awesome. She's so awkward and visibly giddy, so of course she starts immediately joking around again. But this problematic age gap we have now. She starts joking around. You are like 2 years older than her.
I suppose we're
gonna get so canceled on the internet.
It's fine if they don't accept our love.
It being forbidden only makes it sexier. Yeah, they'll spend the rest of the time like bantering back and forth and shoving each other and horsing around, and that'll close out the log.
Oh, actually, one more thing I want to say.
Yeah.
Issa's probably going to hear this, but Isadora's mostly going to be mumbling it, but she'll just say, "So you had to fight for this, huh?"
Fight for the term?
To make... I guess, yeah.
Fight for Sirach. Yeah.
Fight to make everything yours. Guess I have. I never thought I'd be here. Don't know where I thought I'd be. But maybe there was a point to all of this. No, there is.
Yeah, we call that Yorn. We will it. There can't not be a point to it. She goes back over to Isadora's side from where she was working on whatever she was working on. Probably the engines, making them some kind of ungodly. Yeah. It's not for... Well, we're a bit more communal about it. It's not about doing it for the self, the you, but the us. That's what the Kovannin term is about. Right? We do it for the us. There's the you, there's the me, there's the us. That's what we fight for. The us. Against the thems. She gestures vaguely. Whoever makes the poor decision of being the them.
So yes, this is Yarn. Oh shoot, what was the term? It was Seva?
Siva. Yeah.
Seva.
Oh, am I going? Shit. This is a very small, very,
I,
very small ship, sweetheart.
no, that's what I used to be.
Yeah, or Jera. They're the same person? I didn't tell you the
Uh,
full story. She'll spend time telling Isadora the story of Jera because believe it or not, Hyrule, her original name, like the person who had her original name, and Jera knew each other. So the short version is that when Jera, who became Siva, first declared Jera, made it the term Jera of I need to go, the people wouldn't let her leave. You remember the story of Siva that Hyrule told at the fire. She said
mhm.
then she, recognizing the people were too reliant on her, Jera left, declaring herself Siva. So she made Siva a term because the people ignored Jera. Siva is the I'm going and you cannot stop me, right? It's hurting you too much to have me around. And Hyrule, her namesake, respected Siva enough that she sat and waited for her for a very, very long time because they were lovers. They were Sirach with one another. But when Siva did not return, eventually, Hyrule decided that she would be Siva too. That she would leave and go find Siva. It wasn't so much that she had lost faith in Siva, it was more that Siva shouldn't be alone out there. So Hyrule became Siva and left to go find Siva. And when Hyrule found Siva, Hyrule basically accidentally convinced Siva to return. And when Siva came back, the people admitted they were wrong and that Siva had been Jera all along. But that's how the two terms came into existence. So that's the short version of that cool story. So yeah, you were Siva. And Hyrule found you. She laughs.
I don't know if we'll have a blink gate from Overture to anywhere else in the universe, but if we ever can, would you mind stopping in Cradle for a little while?
I would love to. All the blink gates that went from here to anywhere else out there have been shut down or destroyed. But last I checked, I think Boundless was trying to get one started back up again. I don't remember how that was going because, just so you know, we, our people, she gestures, the martyrs, the Arathing of our people, were being used to basically sabotage any and all efforts to get those things started back up again.
Well,
I was part of that. So I know where all of them are. I'll just upload that. Gonna have to be doing a lot of updating. Gotta update my name. Gotta update the dictionary.
oh rats, I've given you paperwork.
I hate paperwork. They made me a leader. Can you believe I'm a colonel? She's so mad.
See, there are some advantages.
Why they spell it like that and pronounce it like this? Colonel. Sorry. Gender opinions leaking into Hyrule. So.
Well, that'll be a nice idea then. One day I'll take you to Cradle, at least for a little while.
There's so much galaxy out there. She grins. I'd like to see as much of it as possible, right alongside you. For as long as possible. That's part of the obligation, she rolls her eyes, of Sirach. It requires more eye rolling. Your translators, by the way, fuck them. That I return to your side if ever I have to go away from it.
and you return to mine. No matter what, unless you don't want me there, then I go away. And
I'm
vice
declared
versa.
struck, and I have no intention of undeclaring it.
She grins, nor I, and I want you around me. Basically all the time. Situations are going to be a little hairy. I'm going to have to go my way. You're going to have to go your way. But we'll meet again. We can't not. I yorn it.
And we have this. And she just taps Moon River.
and she points at the dog tags she gave you. And those. It's not like I can go anywhere. I'd have to carve the fucking chip out of my flesh.
We are well woven.
It's good. Stable orbit. So they'll, over about the time that they'll arrive, I believe like this next session will probably have them just basically show up with the Moon River intact, right, and the hot rod intact.
Mm-hmm.
What's is Isadora repainting it? Because Hyrule does have like a paint. She can paint Isadora's mech, whatever.
I don't think it's going to be quite finished in time for the mission, but she's probably not going to repaint it at the moment.
Yeah.
She likes her colors.
Yeah. So I think like that's where they end. Is they'll it's just the montage. Go ahead.
Some paint on the mech's face to mirror her own.
Yeah. The montage of doing that, and when Isadora pulls out the paint can to put the marks on the face, will get them like that will basically fade out on them getting into a very cute paint fight, right? Where Isa like snatches the paint sprayer from Isadora and sprays her with it, and Isadora probably snatches it back, and they just like start horsing around because it's just cute and fun, and I like cute, wholesome, fun, gay shit. And that's probably where the pilot log fades out. Very cute.